Welcome to the Paul Chandler Show, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In tonight's episode, we're going to be looking at the upper port dissection for the urinary system. Because as we get older, speaking for males and females, we get something called kidney stones every once in a while. And if you're like me, and if you enjoy a nice, refreshing can of Mountain Dew every once in a while, oh man, that's good. Oh, yeah. Keeps you awake and caffeinated, but give it some time and the kidneys may not function. Example, I'm 40 years old now and I've been a Mountain Dew enthusiast. That's what we call ourselves, because saying that we're Mountain Dew addicts just sounds bad. So we're Mountain Dew enthusiasts. I've been Mountain Dew proud enthusiast since I was 16 and I'm 40 now, so do the math. So tonight's episode, we'll be looking at upper port dissection for the urinary system, and it may involve kidney stones, but some things just may be worth it. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. So looking at the diagnosis codes, we have a pre- and post-op diagnosis of transitional cell carcinoma in the bladder. So that is what I'm going to be working with for the post-op diagnosis. And in this part, so we have the transitional cell carcinoma. Carcinoma telling me that deals with the neoplasm table. So we're looking in the neoplasm table. And neoplasms. Okay, neoplasm table and location. So I'm going to cross out carcinoma because I got that being for the neoplasm table. Locations in the bladder. So I can cross out bladder. I need to see, do I just have bladder or nope, I got more locations. Okay. So in the AAPC ICD-10-CM book, neoplasm table begins on page 353, and that is where we also see bladder as well. So neoplasm, then drop down to bladder. Now I have more locations I can have here. I just have urinary bladder, or dome, neck, orifices, and so forth. So I need to look at the location and see where this carcinoma, where this tumor is at. If I do not have it in the drop downs, then I would be choosing the primary malignancy code C67.9, which I see on the bladder line before I drop down for specific locations. And I'm just saying I do not have a pathology report, so I would still go with the primary malignancy line instead of the con site 2 because there's no pathology report. So if I do not have more specific locations, then I would just do the bladder parentheses urinary C67.9. So I'm just checking to see where it's at. Let's see indications. Nope. Patient in supine position and prepped. There we go. A 1 centimeter tumor was notated on the posterior wall. Okay, so that tells me that the tumor is located on the posterior bladder wall. So in the neoplasm table, I can go bladder, then drop down to wall. And because I know it's the posterior part of the bladder wall, then I would drop down from bladder to wall, drop down to posterior. So I'm going to underline that. I'm not going to cross it out just in case I need it for the CPT codes, but that's where I'm pulling it out from. And then looking down, that would give me a diagnosis code of C67.4. And I'm going to undo that yellow there to make it as far as the difference. Okay, so C67.4 is my diagnosis code, and that's the only one diagnosis code that I have. Then procedures. I'm doing a cystoscopy, excision bladder tumor, 1 centimeter, bilateral retrograde pyelogram, and cystology of the bladder. So looking this up, first I'm doing the cystoscopy excision bladder tumor. But now there's two different ways how we can look this up, and as long as we get the same code at the end, doesn't matter how. We can look it up by condition that the patient has. So what condition does the patient have? They got the tumor. In this case, we're looking up by what are we cutting out. So we're cutting out a tumor. So in the back index, if I go to tumor, and then if I drop down to bladder, so tumor takes me to page 1023 in the back of the CPT book. And then drop down to bladder. That takes me to, I'll do the parentheses for now, 52234 through 52240. That's one way you can look it up. Or if you look up excision, because we are doing the excision of the bladder tumor. Then there we do not have as far as the different locations, because if we go down to excision then bladder, that means we're cutting out the bladder. And if we were to go to excision then tumor then bladder, then we just have the one code 51530. So looking at the excision word will not work. So the second way we can get it is by looking up endoscopy, because with the cystoscopy procedure, remember the OSCOPY means we're doing an endoscopy. So if we go to endoscopy on page 876, and then drop down to bladder. Now this one's a little bit confusing because then we have the drop downs after bladder for all the different parts that we could be doing. In this case, we'd go to lesion, and we have 52224, 52234, 52235, 52240, and 52400. Either one can work. However, though, if we were to look up what are we excising out first, the tumor, and then go down that way, then we have better of a range to work with. That gives us 52234 through 52240. 52234 through 40. Okay, and that takes us to page 353. And we only have, actually, it looks like there's multiple codes, but just 3 codes in this range, 52234, 35, and 40. So it's based on the size, small, medium, and large. And because everyone can have different interpretations on what small, medium, and large is, then we would look at the measurements. And I'm actually going to strike through the bladder tumor where I've already pulled out that. And we did pull out the cystoscopy. So from 52234 through 52240, we have 1 centimeter. It tells us what we're cutting out. So I'm going to cross out that because that's what I'm using. And that would give me the CPT code 52234. And then we also have the bilateral retrograde parallelogram. So the bilateral retrograde parallelogram, I'm going to look up parallelogram because that's the procedure that we're actually doing. So that's the word that I'm going to pull up. Parallelogram, P-Y-E-L-O, gram. Parallelogram. And we have on page 985, we get rerouted parallelogram. See urography intravenous or urography retrograde, and I need retrograde. So I'm going to cross out the word parallelogram. I'm going to cross the word retrograde. because I'm getting rerouted to urography retrograde. Urography. Okay, page 1029, urography, and then drop down to retrograde. We only got one code, 74420. And 74420 actually goes to the second code, but I'm putting up on the first line here. And since we never had a code from the back of the book, we double check 7440. Now this is from the radiology section, which we've not covered yet. So this will actually be a little bit of a learning experience as well. 7440. I'm sorry, 74420. 74420, page 459. Urography retrograde with or without KUB. And that's what we did. And then in this case, then we would, now this we'll learn when we do the chapter on radiology, but we would add modifier 26 for professional service because this was done at the hospital. So the coding for the doctor, if the radiologist is not employed by the facility or the hospital, then the radiologist would get modifier 26, and the facility would bill the same CPT code with modifier TC for technical component. Modifier 26 being the professional component. If the radiologist is employed by the facility, then we would just do the CPT code with no modifier 26 or TC, just the CPT code itself. But again, though, this is new to us because we've not done radiology yet. And it'll make a little bit more sense after we do the section on radiology. So that'd be the CPT codes, 52234 for the excision of the bladder, and then 74420, modifier 26, for the bilateral retrograde pyelogram. We are not coding, actually, the cystology of the bladder. Since it's done in the hospital, the cystology of the bladder, that is a urine test that is done. So the hospital will actually be billing that, not the doctor's office or the doctor provider itself. So here we have procedure codes 52234 and 74420, modifier 26. And then we have one diagnosis code, C67.4. Thank you for taking your time out to watch the op report on the urinary system. And our next episode, we'll be doing an op report dissection on the male system. So thank you for watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show, and have an awesome rest of your day.